What up, what up? You're listening to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, and my name is Salvador Briggman. I am your host of this show. If you are commuting to work, you're cleaning your room, you're out there on the treadmill, wherever you are, I commend you for showing up in your life, for educating yourself, downloading some of these nuggets of gold when it comes to crowdfunding straight into your head so you can act upon these and you can crush it with your upcoming campaign. You're doing awesome, man. And I think that you're going to like today's episode more specifically because, number one, if you're doing a new project, there's a lot of stuff that you don't know. And I think that some of the lessons that today's guest learned on product validation is really going to ring true for many entrepreneurs in the audience. This guest today not only did he launch a very successful campaign, which we'll talk about in just a second, but he also shared the exact paint by numbers formula that anyone can use in order to get people to become a part of your community and to back your crowdfunding campaign. He also talked about, more specifically, when you're live, how do you continue to maintain momentum with your campaign? How do you drive traffic? How do you build trust, transparency, and credibility around your brand? How do you even price your product, right? All of these elements we spoke about on today's podcast. And this is kind of like a masterclass, honestly. And how do you deal with people when you're public, when you get mixed reactions, when some people love it, some people hate it, right? There's so much great information, I think, that was shared in today's podcast episode for anyone out there who's launching a campaign, whether that's on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, or even using another form of crowdfunding. But today's guest was actually a successful Indiegogo campaigner who has attracted more than $340,000 with his Indiegogo campaign. And I will also share one other final teaser here before we get into the episode, which is that he also talked about why it is he chose Indiegogo over their competitor, Kickstarter. So if you want to learn that and more, stick around because we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to introduce the guest in just a second with his beautifully designed product. I think it's actually very functional and going to help a lot of listeners of this show as well. But if you really want just more tailored information to you, if you really want to understand the step-by-step that goes into crowdfunding success and beyond the fluff and the motivation, right? Really, I'm talking about like the brass tacks of the tactics you need to employ, the tools out there to make this faster, the step-by-step strategy, and what do you have to do in sort of a bite-sized manner, and you want that delivered straight to your inbox, go down below and sign up for my free Kickstarter course, which also applies to Indiegogo. Go down below at the link crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter, and you can learn more about my free Kickstarter course. Just go to that link, enter your name and email, and I'll start sending you some lessons on how to speed up the launch of your crowdfunding campaign, whether that's on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and more importantly, some of the pitfalls that you want to stay clear of so you don't make a costly mistake before you go live, which is actually quite frequent and common, unfortunately, in this industry, and that I'm trying to, obviously have a better name, right, when it comes to crowdfunding, because I think there are a lot of bad and shady actors in this space. So I hope you enjoy that link, but without further ado, let's dive into today's podcast episode and discover how today's guest was able to launch a campaign, attract more than $340,000 in funding for Base Case. And it's coming up in just a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are speaking with a creator who's been able to achieve over $300K on Indiegogo for the Base Case, the ultra modern, ultra portable mobile workstation. And we are lucky enough to have the creator here today on the show. Arthur, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Salvador. Happy to be here.
Definitely, man. Maybe we can get started. You can fill in some gaps in that introduction. Tell us more a little bit about Base Case and also about you.
Yeah, so Base Case is a product we developed over the last year that is designed to be your ultra portable workstation. It is not portable screens. It's a full workstation that is designed to go in a carry-on case. It is a carry-on case designed to go in the overhead bin. That was our premise getting started. It has 24-inch screens, patent pending telescoping legs that extend out of the case, and it can become your ultimate workstation that you can fold up and take down in less than 30 seconds.
And it looks beautiful. I'm looking at the campaign page here. Looks really portable and also very well designed. Is this your first crowdfunding campaign, or have you guys done other campaigns?
Yes, this is my first and our team's first. It's been a new journey for us. I would say it's been very educational, and it's been a great experience. Forced us to really, really get deep with our product, which you should, but it's been my first experience at a crowdfund. Never had a lot of interaction with it, so it's been a great experience.
Out of curiosity, what were you doing before you launched this campaign or before you started this company?
Yeah, so I work in corporate finance, private equity primarily, and M&A. So worked for a private equity backed roll up buying beauty companies. Focused a lot on the acquisition side.
So where did your passion come from when it comes to base case, or where did you really, what really got your attention when it came to that?
So I'm a travel bug. I love to travel. I'm a little bit of a workaholic and need my real estate on my screens. And so the base case really kind of hits 3 points for me. I love travel, as I mentioned. I'm a workaholic, but I love products that transform. Like we have a baby car seat that will transform into a stroller. And if something about a product that completely can transform has always been really interesting for me. So base case transforms. It's a very transformable product. You'll be walking down, the jetway with a suitcase, and then you can head over to the table after you get off the jetway and set up your workstation in 30 seconds. And being able to transform from a carry-on case into a workstation is for me, I think that's really cool.
Tell me a bit about the story behind the creation. Was this an idea in your head? How long had you been thinking about it before you really started taking action there? Was this a couple of months or years? I'd love to hear more about your story there.
Yeah, no, it's been actually kind of a very condensed time. About a year ago, I had been exploring breaking out and starting my own consulting firm. And with that, working fully remote, I mountain bike a lot, and I had been toying with the idea of getting a Sprinter van and maybe spending a few days a week on the road.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. And for me, I thought I've got the extender screens on the side of my laptop, but I just am not, I don't love it. It works for the coffee shop, but when I'm like, I need to be on a Zoom call, I need to be presenting, I need to see my audience. I also work in big spreadsheets. I need my real estate. So I was like, there's got to be an office that can unfold out of a suitcase. And so I started looking around, couldn't find anything. Obviously, there's a lot of great product like Espresso and Zback and Geminos, but I wanted something where I'm like, I can literally fold this up and throw it under the seat in seconds. But I want it to be up to where I can still use my laptop as a third screen. Right. Kind of the typical corporate setup where you come into the office and you plug in your laptop and you got your two 24-inch monitors that are raised. That's what I wanted wherever I went.
Well, I think most people, they have these kinds of like coffee ideas, right? And then they're like, well, wouldn't it be nice for that to exist? But you actually took action. Have you started a business before, or have you always wanted to be a business owner, or is this kind of more of like an invention for you?
So I've been involved in other startups. I've got a construction company with a brother of mine and been involved in other startups down the road, but not where I was running it, at point. So I started looking around. I found a suitcase that was a hard shell, and just like, hey, I started doing measurements, and we can put some screens in these things. So I bought a nice suitcase online, and very expensive, and $400 suitcase, and gutted it. And that was hard to gut a brand new suitcase, but really we had to re-engineer the entire thing. The hinges had to switch positions. A traditional suitcase opens hamburger style, where our screens open hot dog. You know what I'm saying? So we had to totally re-engineer that. And then the legs were a pretty big, next milestone that we had designed and engineered and machined.
Right.
And so about July of last year, I was prototyping this in my garage. Traditional garage story, right? And had this kind of bulky suitcase that I'd roll around and take to like my headquarters in Frisco, Texas, or LA. We have a couple offices around, and I would set this up and be working, and people would walk by and be like, "What the hell? That's actually really cool. Where'd you buy that?" And so,
right.
And I actually had people starting to ask if they could buy one from me. So I built about 5 of these suitcase prototypes in my garage.
Super cool. Super cool. And I love the fact that you're kind of taking it out in the wild and you're getting feedback, right? I think a lot of people like kind of play their cards close to the vest. So really neat to hear how you're doing that. What kind of led to your decision to do Indiegogo or to involve crowdfunding?
For me, I come from a traditional supply chain. So I work on the M&A acquisition side, but work very heavily with a team integrating companies into our platform. And supply chain had become a very big deal, right? Especially during COVID. And I got thinking, if we could invert the cash conversion cycle to where we could actually get our inventory prepaid, that could really be helpful. So that was one piece. The second piece was really the feedback that I was needing. I would prefer to get this feedback from the market before we design something that we think is good, go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars getting the inventory in, and then say, okay, will people buy it?
Right.
So the crowdfunding experience has been very informative. We've got a ton of feedback from people before we had to go spend all that money on engineering and design and getting the inventory on the shelf.
Right. Talk me through the night before you went live. What was kind of going through your mind on that day?
I would say being my first, I didn't really have a understanding of like what does success look like. We have a lot of VIPs, as you know, the VIP pre campaign that you build, that community. But understand like, hey, are we going to be excited if we do 100 grand? Are we going to be excited if we do 1 million? Just not really knowing what success looks like. I have numbers in my head, but I was calm. We've done a really great job of building our community pre-launch. Got a great team on our team. Ben Fives, our partner on the ad side, and we got some great engineers that have helped us expedite the design. And a lot of people are super surprised at how fast we've moved. So, but going into the night of, I felt really good about it.
So you're feeling confident, you're feeling good, you have some great traction and also some feedback. And then what happened sort of the week after, I guess you went live there?
Well, as you know, things slow down after the first few days. And so just getting comfortable with like, hey, listen, you've got this bell curve. You've got the tail where you've got your super hardcore believers that are just been chomping at the bit to get in. And then you enter this period post-launch where you got to still continue to build the urgency, but a lot of people know that it's like a 30-day campaign because it says, that's the biggest thing that has been kind of a new experience for me is how public the process is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll have friends see me on the street or text me, hey man, looks like you guys are crushing it. And I'll be like, how do you know?
Right.
Oh, that's right. This is out for everyone to see. And so it could be very humiliating, or you could kind of pound your chest if you're really, crushing it. So
how soon before you hit your goal? What day was that?
We hit our goal. I think we were an hour in.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, so we had a $50,000 goal. Yeah.
Insane. I'm sure that was a celebration right behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I would say the launch day was special. We got together about 5 a.m. and set up our command center, and we have a co-working space that we work in sometimes. And we used base case. We set up 3 base cases in this conference room in the matter of about 2 minutes. I mean, we spilled some coffee, so that added some time, but we literally used base case to launch base case. That was pretty fun. We were on our laptops and we had our base case set up with our screens, and Ben was handling the press release. I'm handling the final email launch, and Scott's handling, proofreading and just getting all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But being able to use our product to launch our product, I felt is kind of how this whole thing is. It's just it's meant to be.
Right. And, that's incredible to be able to get to your goal so quickly. And you mentioned this one method I think a lot of people are not actually familiar with, which is this idea of like a pre-launch. Do you think you can just kind of touch on that, what you did leading into the campaign there? Yeah,
the pre-launch is really where you're building this kind of grassroots community that are true believers. They've seen your stuff, you're advertising. So yeah, you set out, you build your pre-launch page then you drive traffic to your funnel, and people see this and they like, hey, I love this product. I want to learn more. So they can put their email in, and then we drive them further and say, well, would you love to be a VIP? And this is what we'll give you. You'll get the best discount. We're going to give our VIPs a discount for life. You'll get kind of first look at new product development. You'll also be in our private VIP group, the Facebook VIP group, where we will kind of share some behind the scenes and give you a lot more detail on what's going on. But that's $50. So we had over 1,000 people pay us $50 deposit to be part of our VIP. And that was several months long. But yeah, we have a great, very strong community, true believers. And that's been a huge part of your success. You want to go in with this community that's primed and ready to be
right. And I think that's extremely powerful, because you obviously have the validation there, and also people are putting down funds, it sounds like. For those people that are skeptical, what is the way in which you're then delivering a discount? Are you doing like a secret perk on Indiegogo, or are you letting them know first? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah. So they get a secret perk that is sent to them separately. And that's part of the VIP. We send out a separate email that is tailored just for that group. And that's how they get their discount. So anyone going to our regular Indiegogo won't see that. And that's part of being a VIP.
Very cool. Very cool. So it sounds like that had a pretty profound effect with your launch, I imagine. So really cool. Thank you for sharing that. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Sounds like you've been in a couple of different businesses when it comes to construction, also private equity. How would you say, this launch or this campaign compares? Is it like a different feeling doing e-commerce, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience in e-commerce with the beauty brands that we've acquired over the last 5 years. So that's not too far off of this. The difference is this is very public. People can't go and see your Shopify numbers, whereas people can see your Indiegogo campaign. So it's out there. It's for everyone to see. It's right. It's truth.
And
right?
One of those terms that a lot of people throw around is this idea of like transparency, right? And how important that is with crowdfunding. What are your thoughts, or what's your take on this idea of transparency and trust?
I think transparency is the number one piece to this. You have to be very upfront. You got to be candid. You've got to be a little bit vulnerable and just tell people exactly how it is. Most of the time you want to tell people what they want to hear. You have to be open and honest. And so we have been very communicative over our VIP. We try to do as much as we can on email, but we try to not come across as too spammy. But in our VIP, we were very open. We were talking, we're posting videos, we're posting photos of our production and our prototyping and everything in between. And then honestly, I call myself the chief intern because I'm handling everything as far as inbound Instagram messages and emails. And, the first day of launch was just nonstop, customer service, right? Trying to make sure everyone fully understands what's going on. You get people that misunderstood the VIP. They thought that they were getting the case for $700 instead of a $700 discount. There's things like that. Try to be incredibly transparent. I think that's the number one piece of this
transparency, just kind of, I guess, communicating what's happening behind the scenes in terms of your production, right? When you're going live, if mistakes happen, being willing to be open about that. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've sent out an email where we had a lot of our VIPs untagged. That was a mistake on my part. And you just have to own it. And people really appreciate that, by the way. I've had people.
Why do you think that is?
I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people comment, like we get some nasty grams on Facebook, and people are being jerks, like your product's overpriced, you're ripping people off. I'm like, and our approach has been, listen. So I'll respond and say, guys, I hear you. I would love to talk to you. If you have a more affordable way to develop this, here's my email. Like, let's chat. And it disarms them, and then they become allies. I've had this happen so many times where people online, they're so tough, and then you just be open and vulnerable to them, and just say, guys, like, this is exactly how it is. We're being honest. And I think a lot of times they're surprised that you respond to them. A lot of times I can't respond to every Facebook comment. It got to be overwhelming, and it's obviously not productive after a certain point. But there's times where people message us and kind of come at us, and then we just go back to them with honesty and transparency and grace. And all of a sudden, if you handle it in a nice way, that's the problem, is the internet, we're too mean. And if you can kind of like go back at them and just say, guys, listen, like, lower the bar, drop your guard. It's shocking how fast they will come back, and then you have an ally, and then you have a new backer.
Yeah, it's really easy to forget that like humans are on the other side of the screen, but also this idea of like co-creation where you're creating something with the backers. I think that really changes the dynamic entirely, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had calls, and I've had to almost be like, okay, I don't have enough time to take every call, but I've had people reach out Instagram. I'll be like, hey, let's get on a call. I'd love to hear what your line of work is and how we can think about developing our product with your needs in mind. That's the point of the crowdfund, is we need that feedback. I have a very specific viewpoint on what I think base case should look like, but I happen to be in one industry. What about the live video teams, the photographers, the emergency response, the corporate finance like me, or like the IT team that needs a disaster recovery case, right? Federal agencies, military. I mean, we've had every walk of life reach out to us and have their requests that they would like.
Out of curiosity, what really instructed or what kind of led to you to do an Indiegogo campaign? We get a lot of campaigns for Kickstarter and also Indiegogo. I think a lot of listeners are always wondering, like, which one should I go with? What are your thoughts on your reasoning behind Indiegogo?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. I've had a lot of people ask that. Why are you not doing Kickstarter? It's the more well-known. Kickstarter, from my understanding, again, I'm not an expert on this, but the perks are not as easy to set up with the way that we wanted to do it. And then we have our prototypes that we took to Consumer Electronics Show. We had a booth there. We have really kick-ass prototypes. It's not our finished product. We wanted to demonstrate what the finished product will be. And we've still got a few tweaks and designs. We just ran out of time to get to CES. But these are prototypes that we have sold to very large corporations. We have sold to agencies. We have provided a sample to the US military. Very great working prototypes, but it's not our finished product. So we needed to do some rendering on top of that. And Indiegogo is a little more flexible there. You know, Indiegogo came to our booth. We went to their events at CES. And, you know, if you're in the prototyping phase, you're not allowed to do renders. But because we actually have a real prototype that works, their team had actually been to our booth several times, saw that it worked. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. You guys are good to go. Trust and safety team signed off. So that wasn't an issue, but it's a little more flexible there from my understanding. And so
and that personal touch makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, to have that team come and actually see 4 of our cases set up, people working on them, interacting with them. It was fun. At CES, we had a little side booth kind of that we had our table set up, and we'd have some of our team were actually on Zoom calls, you know, next to the booth.
You know, and thinking about this journey which you've been on, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect? Is it the win, the funding? Is it that, you know, you're expanding into new verticals now? Is it the response? Like, what do you feel like is the most rewarding aspect for you?
Yeah, I would say our experience at CES was our first kind of taste of, hey, we're on to something. Actually, before that, we actually had a branch of the U.S. military reach out back in early December. That was probably the first reaction, like, wow, this is we're on to something here. I love the product, but when other people are reaching out and agencies or military, that's where you're like, it's resonating. But while we were at CES, we had a very large hedge fund come to our booth. It's a hedge fund that's a household name, and they had told us they were excited to see us. And obviously, you're like, great. They're like, no, we came out to see you guys.
Wow.
We want to kind of sit down and talk. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They're like, well, we saw your stuff and we saw that you had a booth, so we wanted to come out and meet Base Case. That's like, okay, well, that was one of the triggers. Like, all right, we're onto something here. And then we had several Fortune 500 companies, a couple foreign governments that came to the booth. We're down in Eureka Park at CES, where a lot of startups. I mean, that's basically startups down there, and so you got a lot of people that are wanting to see what's the latest and greatest. And our booth was complete madhouse the entire 4 days, and that was one of the biggest wins, I would say. We're like, wow, we're okay. We've got to.
Yeah, it's almost like you have your own audience there, where people are kind of watching your every step, and you're growing, and it's quite exciting, right? When it comes to that, I think for someone who's listening to this, first of all, they're going to take away the advice that you gave, which is building an audience ahead of time and making sure that you're being transparent. Do you have any other thoughts for like a beginner, someone who maybe isn't seasoned in business, who's an inventor? Any thoughts or advice for a first timer who wants to stand out and to launch a great product?
Yeah, I think a creative, innovative product, it sounds cliche, but it will grab attention. Base Case is a very visual product. It grabs the attention of people. So that helps a huge amount. The next thing I would say, it's a numbers game. It just truly is. You've got to have numbers behind you to have a really successful campaign. The one thing I've learned is you'll run across people and, hey man, that is such a cool product. I love that. And then you're like, hey, hand me your credit card. And that's a huge litmus test of, okay, how cool is your product?
Yeah.
Because words are cheap, right? And so that's been an interest, even among my friends. People are like, that is super dope. And then you see the crowdfunder, like, which ones have actually put their money where their mouth is. And, if it's not for everyone, our product is certainly not for everyone. It is not for someone who's just going to be at Starbucks. You could take it to Starbucks, but it's really designed for the digital nomad who is working in their van. It's designed for the corporate that maybe they have an offsite and they still need to be plugged in. It's designed for federal agencies that have a lot of, they're transporting every day. They're setting up, taking down. Construction workers, guys like me, I go on vacation with my family. We're in an Airbnb. I still need to be plugged in. I can take the Base Case with me and have my workstation set up in 30 seconds and being productive as I would be at my regular work.
Love it. I do have one or two more questions, but where can people go to learn more about Base Case, and where can they learn more about what you're working on there?
Yeah, so you can visit our Shopify site, getbasecase.com, and then you can find us on Indiegogo as well.
So getbasecase.com. We'll make sure to link that up in the show notes. So I have one or two more questions for you here when it comes to this. And I really appreciate your time and all the advice that you're sharing. My first question would be, in thinking about this, going into your launch, there's so many things that you can do. Is there anything that you wish you had done differently, or any, things you wish you had focused on more with the campaign? You've already done a great campaign, but any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think everything we've done I don't have really a lot of regrets. Things have actually gone pretty smooth. I mean, there's a lot of times you do things, you're like, that was a miss. Could have done that different. But not to say we're perfect by any means, but there's not a lot of regret or things that I would change.
Well said.
Maybe slightly better communication with with our VIP when they convert, like, listen, crowdfunding is not getting the product today. I think there are some people that have come and why we haven't converted, they understand, like, I will get this soon versus, hey, this could be a 6 to 8 month process first. We're very far along in our designs, but molding, mass production, design for manufacturing,
Right.
all that stuff takes time. And the tariffs going on right now are definitely not helping. But for us, we're looking at it as, don't let a crisis go to waste. This is going to make us more resourceful, more thoughtful, more creative. It sucks, but let's try to take that momentum and shift it to where we're actually better at our job.
Right. So setting expectations about crowdfunding sort of being different than normal e-commerce. My final question for you,
Sure.
we can end on this note, would be, you can either end with a word of encouragement for other creators in the audience. You could end with a book or that you like or that you've read. It could be on business or life advice, or you can end with a quote that you like. Any of those?
Yeah, I have a quote I really love. It's a guy named Scott Galloway. I try to apply this to everything in my life, but greatness is in the agency of others. You're only as good as the team that you surround yourself with. And so I've been super fortunate to surround myself with a great team and a great group of people. It definitely takes experience to know what a great team is, right? If you're a young founder, you're going to get bombarded, especially when you have a little bit of success. You're going to be getting hit up by everyone. They're the best agency. They're the best crowdfunding agency. It takes a lot of experience to know what good is. But having that team around you is the key to making this work.
Well said. Arthur, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And we will link up everything in the show notes.
Thanks, Salvador.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. You're listening to Salvador Briggman, the host of this show. And if nothing else, I think that, being able to listen to guests like this really shows that this is possible, that anyone out there can raise funding from the crowd, that there is a strategy behind this, and that anyone, if you're serious about bringing a new product into the world, your background could be in private equity, your background could be as a construction worker, you could have never launched a product in your life, you could have launched a couple that were just duds. Doesn't matter. It's always a clean slate. And as long as you build a strong foundation for the campaign and you follow those tenets of crowdfunding success, you can go out there and you can crush it with your crowdfunding campaign. If you're struggling at all with the motivation element and you've been procrastinating a lot and you feel like everything's catching your eye and attention, you just want to buckle down, get serious, and get this out there. First of all, I got a great new book out there called The 67-Day Rule. This is how do you solidify that habit of taking action, being persistent, and moving towards your goals in the span of 67 days. If you like the idea of having a sprint mentality, of having a coach who can help you through that process, from my book angle, and you also want to make most of this time, go down below and learn more about my book at crowdcrux.com/67 for the 67-day rule. And in addition, I do offer a service for those of you that are serious about this. You really are willing to buckle down, make an investment, and you want to learn about how to do this right. And you're done with reading the articles, listening to the podcasts, watching the videos. You're like, I got to speak to a human being, right? I don't want to just speak to a random person out there or AI or whatever. I need to speak to a human being. And I'm going to go out there, me, and dive into that war chest of information in my head over the last 10 years of successful campaigns, trends that are working right now, tools that you can utilize, and apply all of that like a laser point just to your specific project, campaign, and unique situation. We can move your project forward like light years at a time. And if you want to explore that, that's at my individual one-on-one coaching call option. These are individual one-off calls with me, and you can go down below and you can book yours today at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That's going to set a strong foundation for your launch. That's going to make sure you're steering clear of major pitfalls along the way, that you're using the most cutting edge tools, tactics, and strategies that are working right now going into your launch and that you really have an understanding of, is this something that you should even do if you're on the fence at all about running a crowdfunding campaign. Go down below at that link, crowdcrux.com/coaching. I have so many students who come to me able to make a minor adjustment. It has a profound effect on their campaign. They're able to raise 5-6 figures with that launch and be able to crush it and build a brand that really flows years into the future. So it's a great investment. Down below at crowdcrux.com/coaching. Thank you so much. My name is Salvador Briggman. If you enjoyed this episode and my other ones, leave a positive rating and review on iTunes. If you're listening on YouTube, give me a thumbs up, a positive comment down below, and go out there this week, take some action, move towards your goals. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.